Good afternoon, everybody. It is June 23rd, 2023, Friday. It is 4:41 in the afternoon. Okay. So this is week 1 to Lisa TerKeurst and the Proverbs 31 Ministries team, 40 days through the Bible. Okay, week 1, longing for purpose. Joel Metamol. Okay. Take a moment and recall the first time someone asked you, what do you want to be when you grow up? How old were you? How did you answer that question? Why did you answer the way you did? The answer is directly connected to how we try to find our place in this world. Figuring out our place comes from understanding our purpose. Purpose. We long for purpose because God created us for a purpose. Wrapped up in that purpose is the biblical truth that our purpose involves dignity and destiny. Genesis chapter 1, verses 26 and 27 reminds us that humanity is made in the likeness and image of God. God graciously bestows the mark of his image upon his children. This image gives us a status that cannot be taken away and a dignity unlike any other created thing. With this dignity in mind, we are set up to work out God's purpose for our lives. We find the first commission God gave to Adam and Eve in Genesis chapter 1, verse 28, where God gives humanity dominion over the earth and commands them to be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth with image bearers of God. Here we have the foundations of the intended purpose of God for humankind. God intended for us to be his faithful representatives and spread his glory from Eden to the ends of the earth. Therefore, humanity's purpose is intrinsically tied to the work and will of God. In Genesis 3, the fall disrupts God's intended purpose for humanity, but does not destroy it. We now live in the tension between the purpose of God and the purpose of man. Proverbs chapter 19, verse 21 captures not only the tension, but the outcomes. Many are the plans in the mind of a man, but it is the purpose of the Lord that will stand. One of the most important decisions we must make that is not a one and done, but a continual intentional decision is to follow the purpose of God. Sin tempts us to follow our thoughts, intentions, and longings for our own purposes, and the fruit of this can tragically result in idolatry. This week, we will explore the intersection of God's purpose and the purpose of man, beginning with Adam and Eve and wrapping up with Abraham. We will see the great blessing and joy that comes from obedience and submitting to the purpose of God. We will also see the utter destruction that takes place when humanity attempts to exert their own purpose, ignoring and rejecting the purpose of God. Okay, week 1, day 1, creation. God, in his grace, created a good world. Wendy Blight. Today's reading, Genesis 1 and 2. And God saw everything that he had made, and behold, it was very good. Genesis chapter 1, verse 31. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Day by day, God created everything good. God spoke and transformed formless and empty into light and order. There was no chaos, no evil. Even the darkness of the night had a good purpose, to bless and sustain life. God called his creative work good on each day except for the sixth day. That day, he described his work differently because God created something very special on this day. Okay, questions. Question 1. Who does God create? Genesis chapter 1, verse 27. And you can write these down if you want to. There's room in the book to write it down. Question 2. What words did God speak in Genesis chapter 1, verses 26 and 27? What does it mean to you that you've been made in the image of God? Question 3. Why do you think God calls his creation very good instead of good? Genesis chapter 1, verses 31. Genesis 2 gives more specificity on who God created on the sixth day. Question 4. Read Genesis chapter 2, verse 18 and 21 and 22. Who else does God create? Circle or write down how many times you see the word good in chapter 2. Okay. Question 5. As we consider the word longing, what did God identify as lacking in Adam's life? Genesis chapter 2, verse 18. Who fulfilled that longing? Genesis chapter 2, verses 21 through 23. While this is a picture of marriage, it also shows that God has designed humanity for fellowship with one another. Describe a friend or family member for whom you are grateful. Question 6. It's important that we understand good to mean more than simply beautiful or well-made. Read Ecclesiastes chapter 7, verse 29. Identify another word that speaks of God's creation and relates to the word good. What does this teach about how God made mankind? Okay. And you can write these down if you want to. Tucked in this wonderful creative work of God, we find a great promise. We find the hope that God has a plan bigger than what we see in the hard places in our lives, bigger than the mess in which we may find ourselves. These places and messes may frighten, unsettle, and confuse us, even lead us to feelings of fear, anxiety, and hopelessness. But God, through the creation account, brings hope. Creation shows us God is an expert at beginnings, good beginnings. Because of this, we can trust Him when circumstances arise that we may not understand or may question. We can trust Him when He creates or allows circumstances that lead us out of what feels safe and comfortable. God has not changed since Genesis 1. Scripture tells us He is never changing. Malachi chapter 3, verse 6. Hebrews chapter 13, verse 8. The God of Genesis 1 is the God of today and the God of forever. Just as He did during creation, He is able to bring good to all things. He is able to bring order and beauty in ways that bring hope and confidence. Question 7, and the last question. One more question to take us a bit deeper. Did you know the Son of God took part in creation? Read John chapter 1 verses 3 and Colossians chapter 1 verse 16 and reflect on what it means to you that God, the Son, made the world. Okay, so that is all for this book. And that is all for week 1, day 1. Creation. Lisa TerKeurst and the Proverbs 31 team. 40 days through the Bible. If you like this content, like this video, or comment below. Thank you very much, and thank you for watching.